Oh, goody.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another Marvel Snap video. So this one, we have a bit of an update about collector's reserves. This has been a hot topic for a while. You may have seen last week, put up a video opening 250 of these bad boys to get a overall idea of what is inside them for all the people who have been holding them in the hope that they are going to be improved at some point, and they'll be able to benefit like many players did when Spotlight Caches first came out. Well, we got some answers here today about that, and it felt pretty important and worth mentioning here for all the folks who don't frequent the Discord stuff. So Deadeye here is asking, ever since the introduction of Spotlight Caches and the change in collector's reserves, many people have been hoarding their reserves expecting a buff to them. Most of them have a problem with the gold tickets that contains, which kind of forces them to play more Conquest, or they get converted into an unfair amount of boosters at the end of the season. So is this a concern for the team that people are hoarding reserves instead of opening them for rewards for months now? Is this anything they're looking into? There is nothing about it in the roadmap as well. I'm asking this so that everyone who still has their hopes high doesn't get disappointed if, even after months of hoarding, there are still no changes. So yeah, pretty good question, and we are finally getting a bit of a response to it. Our stance on reserve hoarding has not changed. We hear the feedback that folks want additional value out of reserves. Based off our models and data, the game economy cannot currently support higher rewards out of reserves. As a result, we have no plans to change collector's reserves at this time. If we did make a major change at some point in the future, we would most likely do it in a way that opens hoarded reserves out of fairness. If this happened, our goal would be to make sure folks who are playing and opening reserves to have the most fun out of their time playing Snap do not feel punished. So wow, a lot to dissect there, but the TLDR is they are not planning on changing reserves at all right now, as they believe their game economy can't handle it, apparently. And on top of that, if they ever do buff reserves in the future, they no longer want to make it so that people who have been hoarding get an advantage over those who have not. And this really all just goes back to the first time this happened. I think it was really clear they were being a little bit optimistic when the first economy overall happened with Spotlight Caches. I think they were hoping that not many players would take advantage of the trick of, well, I just open the non-spotlights before the update and then open the spotlights after, and I get a double dip. And while we'll never know the exact numbers, it feels like a lot of the more engaged player base did do this. A lot of the people knew this update was coming, held their boxes because they just didn't feel like they were getting much out of them post Series 3 completion, and massively profited from it, depending on how many resources they had saved up prior to the update. So it feels like they're still not too happy about players getting one over on them there, and if there is ever a second opportunity for something like that to happen, they're going to go out of their way to make sure that players hoarding reserves will not get more rewards than the players who are currently opening their boxes. So to me, this is a pretty clear sign that if you're holding boxes in the hope of them getting better, well, there might not be a whole ton of point to that in the future. Not only because it doesn't sound like there are any plans or changes, but even if there were plans and changes, they are going to do so in a way that is going to make it so these people can't benefit from it. Which is a shame, but, not really surprising to me. I think the first time it happened, they learned a pretty valuable lesson from the business side of, yeah, players are going to take advantage of whatever they can to get more resources, as, in my opinion, they should. It's not like the game is handing out resources willy-nilly. Players, if you see an opportunity to get more resources, you should take it. This also ties into a recent thing that I thought about covering, but didn't think it needed its own video, of the recent Doom bundle we had in the web store. If you haven't heard about this, when the Doom bundle dropped the other day, there was a limited time window of, I think, a few hours where on the web store, it was advertised 10,000 gold instead of the 4,000 that it was actually supposed to have and that you saw in game. And they have actually also responded to that as well, saying any player who purchased it during that period on the web store will be receiving the extra 6,000 gold for a total of 10,000 at some point in the near future. I was kind of surprised they actually are honoring that. I imagine that's more out of some kind of legal obligation rather than just, from the kindness of their hearts, but nonetheless, it was kind of surprising to me that they're doing that, so I did want to include that in here if you hadn't heard about that. But it is kind of funny that, they don't want normal players to feel like they're being punished when I've seen quite a few people actually kind of feel that way as a result of this whole little gold mishap, where people are like, oh man, I bought it in game and I missed out on all this extra stuff because of a mistake. I feel like I got a little bit punished for not using the web store. Obviously, it's a different situation, but I thought it was kind of relevant to add in here. And then the other relevant topic we have here is about gold tickets, which are part of the reason people started hoarding collector's reserves to begin with. It wasn't just removing resources like gold, but mainly adding this gold ticket that a lot of players just don't really have a ton of interest in using and feel like it is really unenjoyable to get, so much so that they aren't actively opening their boxes because they want to avoid getting those gold tickets. As the topic of collector's reserves has been brought up again, can you please explain why it was decided to add gold tickets to the reward pool? I understand that you did not want to increase the rewards when 50 tokens was an option, but something infinitely obtainable isn't very exciting. Was anything else ever considered, or was it an obvious choice? And the response has been, at the time, Conquest had just come out and we felt like they were perceived as a valuable reward that would help players save time and jump straight into Gold Conquest to try and earn an infinity ticket. Unfortunately, the perception of gold tickets did not reach that bar. Hopefully in the future, as we add more features, events, clans, more game modes, etc., we can find a replacement for gold tickets with something that the community values more. So, I mean, yeah, that's good. I really do think gold tickets should be certainly removed from the boxes. I think they are by far the worst thing to open. I think the only upside for people is if you're someone who doesn't play a lot of Conquest, but you want the rewards, maybe that helps you a little bit. Because you have to spend less time in the lower tiers, but the community feedback has been very clear that this is not something people value in these boxes. So it's nice to hear that that might eventually be changing. Obviously, take it with a grain of salt, and there's no clear commitment to what they might be being replaced with, just some things saying, hey, yeah, as we're adding more features to the game, maybe we can use one of those features to improve the boxes here, because gold tickets clearly aren't really meeting people's standard. So, I mean, that's a good thing. And you might be thinking, well, doesn't that actually encourage me to hoard more? Because if I don't want the gold tickets, I can avoid them and maybe they'll be better in the future. And then that just goes back to the other question of they seem to really not want to reward that behavior. And if they do end up changing it, it sounds like they are going to be forcing the boxes open before those changes are applied to the game. So what do I think about all this? Well, it's pretty simple. It's not really surprising. I think it's unfortunate for the people who held out. I think the people holding out are fairly reasonable, especially after doing the opening of all the boxes and seeing what was in them. After 6 months of holding boxes, getting essentially enough tokens for 1 Series 5 card and 2 Spotlight keys really made the boxes not feel very worthwhile to open. And clearly, if people aren't opening them, they really feel like they're not missing out on much, which I think is definitely a problem. It's one I hope that gets improved, but I don't have a lot of faith in that happening. And I certainly have about 0 faith of them actually letting people get rewarded for holding the boxes again, as they've kind of learned that lesson from the first time it happened. So it's a shame. It's not unexpected. I wanted to get this out there though, because I know there are a lot of people holding. You could put the tinfoil hat on and say, what if this is just an elaborate ploy? What if they're trying to do this so we finally open our boxes and they can't actually, you know, open all the boxes on their end? But I think that's going a little bit too deep in the sauce. I don't think it's that convoluted. And I think a lot of the people hoarding probably won't even ever see this message. So I'm not sure if that would actually work out, but I think it's unlikely that that would be the case. I think if they're willing to say this, they probably plan on executing it if they actually do go forward with such changes in the future. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this one. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I know this is a hot topic, so I'm curious to hear it, but I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.